The friend is not spoken publicly before this. That is the first thing you need to understand. She is not someone who sought this out. She did not go looking for an audience or a platform or the particular kind of attention that comes from being the person who knows something that everyone else wants to know. She was found carefully over a long period of time by someone she eventually decided she trusted enough to tell what she had been carrying. What she was carrying was a conversation. One conversation. Specific date, specific place, specific words said by a specific person who disappeared shortly after saying them. A conversation that the friend has replayed in her mind so many times across the months since the disappearance that she knows it the way you know things you did not choose to memorize but that memorize themselves to repetition. Every pause, every word, every moment where the person sitting across from her said something that the friend did not fully understand at the time and has been understanding more completely ever since. She agreed to share it. Not all of it. She was clear about that from the beginning. There are parts of what was said that belong to the woman who said them and that the friend will not give away regardless of what is asked of her. Regardless of how much pressure is applied or how many times a question is asked in different forms. She has a line and she knows where it is and she has not moved it. But there are parts she will share, and the parts she will share are enough. Let me tell you about the friendship first, because the conversation only means what it means in the context of who was having it, who these two women were to each other, what the trust between them had been built from, why what was said to this person and not to anyone else. They had known each other for 11 years. Not the kind of knowing that comes from proximity, from being in the same circles, the same events, the same rooms, because the same life had placed them there. The kind of knowing that is chosen, that started as proximity and became something else through the specific decision made repeatedly over years to go deeper rather than stay at the surface, to have the real conversations rather than the managed ones. To be the person the other person called when the thing that was happening was not something that could be said to anyone who was connected to the situation. The friend was outside the situation entirely. This was not an accident. It was, the friend believes, the whole reason she was the one who received what she received in that final conversation. She had no stake in any of it. She knew the people involved only through what she had been told by the woman who eventually disappeared, which meant she had no loyalty to anyone except the woman herself, no relationship to protect, no version of events she needed to maintain. She was safe. Safe is the word the friend uses. She was the safe person, the one outside the walls of everything that had become complicated and pressured and full of people who all had their own positions and their own needs and their own versions that they were protecting. Being outside all of that made her the only person it was possible to be fully honest with. The conversation happened 3 days before the disappearance. I am going to be precise about how it started because the start of it is something the friend considers important. Not dramatic, not the beginning of something that announced itself as significant. They were sitting together in the ordinary way of two people who have been friends for 11 years and know how to be in the same space without feeling every moment of it. They were drinking tea. The television was on, but neither of them was watching it. The afternoon had the quality of afternoons that have no agenda. Slow, without direction, the kind of time that exists between the scheduled things. She put her cup down. The friend noticed because of the way she put it down. Not carelessly. She was never careless with objects. She had the particular attentiveness to physical things of someone who was attentive to everything. She put the cup down with a deliberateness that was slightly more than the action required. The friend looked up. She was already looking at her. She said, "I need to tell you something, and I need you to just listen until I am finished. Because if you ask questions in the middle of it, I will lose my nerve, and I will not be able to finish it." The friend said, "Okay." She talked for 40 minutes. The friend did not ask a single question. What she said in those 40 minutes, the full version of it, the friend is not going to give completely, but she has agreed to give the shape of it, the outline, the parts that explain what followed without giving away what belongs only to the woman who said them. She said she had known for some time that she was going to leave, not in the way that people say they know things when they mean they suspect or they fear or they have been considering the possibility, in the specific way of someone who has crossed a threshold internally that cannot be uncrossed. She had been on one side of a line for a long time, the side where leaving was a thought, an option, a thing she turned over and examined and put down and picked up again. And then, at some point she could not identify precisely, she had crossed to the other side, where leaving was not a thought anymore, but a fact that had not yet been executed. She had been on the other side of that line for months before the conversation. She had told no one. The friend asked her. After the 40 minutes, after she had finished, the friend asked her one question. She asked, "Why did you stay as long as you did once you knew?" The answer to that question is the part the friend considers most important, the part she has thought about most in the months since, the part that she believes explains something about the disappearance that the public version has never managed to explain. She said, "Because I kept hoping I was wrong about what I knew." The friend sat with that for a long time after the conversation ended. She has been sitting with it since. The specific experience of someone who has arrived at a certainty they do not want to have, and who continues to live inside the situation that produced it. Not because they are uncertain, but because they are hoping against the evidence of their own clear perception that the certainty is mistaken, that they have somehow gotten something wrong, that the thing they know is not quite what it appears to be, and that staying long enough will reveal the error in their own understanding. She stayed hoping she was wrong. She was not wrong. The friend does not know exactly when she understood this completely, but she knows from the conversation, from the specific weight of those 40 minutes, that by the time she was sitting across from her drinking tea on that ordinary afternoon, the hoping was finished. She had stopped hoping she was wrong. She had accepted that she was right. And accepting it had produced the conversation, the need to give it to someone, to have it witnessed by a person outside the walls of everything. Before she did what she had decided to do, the friend was the witness. She said other things in those 40 minutes, things about what the situation had been and what it had cost her and what she understood about it now that she had not understood when she entered it. The friend will not share these things. She is consistent about this, and she does not waver when she is asked directly. They belong to the woman who said them, and the woman did not say them to share them with the world. She said them to set them down, to give them to someone who would hold them carefully outside the situation so that they existed somewhere other than only inside her. The friend is holding them. She will keep holding them. What she will say, what she has agreed to say, the part she considers it right to share, is the last thing. The thing sat at the door after the 40 minutes were over, and the tea was cold and the television was still on, and the ordinary afternoon had become something else, without either of them deciding it should. She stood at the door for a moment before leaving. She turned back once. She said, "I need you to remember that I was happy at the beginning. Whatever you hear later, whatever version of this reaches you, I need you to remember that part was real. It was real, and it was mine, and no version of what comes after takes that away from it." The friend said she would remember. She left. 3 days later she was gone. Not dramatically, no single moment that could be pointed to as the disappearance. Simply an absence that grew from one day to the next until it became clear that it was not temporary, that she was not coming back to the version of the life she had left, that whatever she had decided in those months of knowing, in those 40 minutes of telling, in those 3 days between the conversation and the leaving, whatever she had decided was final. The friend has not heard from her since. She does not know where she is. She knows the last thing she said at the door. She has kept it the way she was asked to keep it. She has held it across the months of silence and speculation, and the public version settling into the shape that public versions settle into when the person at the center of them is not present to correct anything. She kept her promise. She is keeping it now by telling the part that can be told and protecting the part that cannot. The part that can be told is this: she was not running from something she did not understand. She was not a woman overtaken by circumstances beyond her comprehension or control. She was someone who understood exactly what she was walking away from and exactly what it had cost her, and who had, in 40 minutes on an ordinary afternoon over cold tea, given the true version of it to the one person she trusted to hold it correctly. She knew what she was doing. She had always known what she was doing. The disappearance was not a crisis. It was a decision.